We will get back with where we left off. Mr. Seaver, I believe you were talking about the principals.
Yeah, if you've got any questions, and it's not just the principals, obviously we got several members of our instructional staff, special ed. Mr. Rawls is going to get Tina, and they're actually fixing to do a little bit of presentation as far as operations and device rollout and things of that nature. But at this point in time, with the discussion that we've had, if you've got questions for any of our staff members or any of our principals, be more than happy to ask those questions or vice versa. If y'all just got a comment that you want to make based on what you've heard today, any dialogue that needs to take place, I reckon board members, I'll ask you first. Anybody got a question for any of our staff members?
I'd have a comment to all the principals especially and tell you that I don't think anybody on this board expects you to have every I dotted and every T crossed when we go back to school. Yeah, it'll be a work in progress, and we're all in it together, and I know you're tired of hearing that, but whatever you need to do, I think the board will support you. I know that we can't possibly think of everything we need to do to try to keep social distancing, but I was thinking while Ms. Oates was talking that these things are good things. We should have been doing them years before. We wouldn't have the flu outbreaks and the things that we do if we continue this good hygiene. So I hope we can do that and make some other, whatever adjustments y'all think are necessary to your facilities.
And if we keep them 6 feet apart, we have less discipline issues too.
They can't reach that far.
Any other questions from board members?
With the students that return 5 days back to a regular school, will they be eating lunch in the cafeteria, or they be eating it in their classroom to keep the distance?
Just from what we planned at Whitmire, when we were hybrid, we could have 2 more cafeteria tables and use the cafeteria for all of ours. But if they come back full day, everybody 5 days a week, it would depend on those number of online students. But our goal is to do a schedule where they do go to the cafeteria. It might not be every child gets that opportunity every day, but it would be a schedule for that.
And I'll respond on behalf of Newberry High School. The plan in which we're prepared to move forward with is that we do give our students and our staff that opportunity to have that experience, to have a regular lunch. In regards to, I guess there are a lot of ways you can interpret lunch and how that's socially distance safe, but the way we interpret that, according to the state guidelines, is a percentage of capacity. And our school cafeteria and what we can do, and the fact that we have a 9th grade lunch, and then we have a 10th and 11th grade and 11th, 12th grade lunches, that we feel like we can do that safely and still give students the opportunity to experience that without having to serve lunches in the classroom. And because that does become a challenge. If I'm a teacher and not only do I have kids in a classroom for 90 minutes and then you tack on another 30 minutes in response to that, is that if you look at what research has shown and socially and emotionally and what kids need in the course of a day, I think that's an important aspect to include. But what we've planned and tried to prepare for is try to include that into our school day and make sure that kids have that access. But at the same time, we've done that safely and to mitigate the possible spread of COVID-19.
So could you or would you give them the opportunity to pick up their lunch and maybe eat it in another designated area or two?
Yes, sir. Of course. And that would be our hopes and our goals and what we've planned for.
Okay.
And again, we're also planned for if they have to pick it up and take it back to a classroom. If that's what we need to do, that's what we'll do.
Okay.
But I would hope that we can be creative and we can be specialized and enough to think what we can still do and give our kids access to socially what they need to be successful academically outside of those classrooms. But we feel comfortable doing that.
Now, Mr. Stuber, for all the different schools and the principals and like for the lunch, which I mean, if they're able to do that, I think that's a good idea. But again, like the safety protocols that will be put in place, that it's put, that everybody follows they're going to follow the same type of safety protocols, and are those safety protocols going to be, by the CDC? Is that what you were saying?
Well, go ahead. We've got recommendations in place, but again, the other thing that drives what we're able to do with our lunches, whether they're in the classroom or whatever, all the protocol we've been given up to this point was at 50% capacity. If we're being told it's dependent upon how many parents sign their children up
Right.
to be virtual. If we've got 75 or 80% of our kids that are coming back for 5 days of traditional, then we've got a challenge on our hands of socially distancing everybody. And it may not be the same on every campus simply because of, number one, the square footage they've got in their cafeteria, but also their schedule and, when classes change and things
I
of
know
that nature.
those types of things, but I guess it's just like, like they do in Walmart now, or any grocery store that you go in, they have little spots that you can stand in. I mean, at that point, will you go in and mark off your seats so that, or, if you have to take
Well,
a
those
seat
plans
out
are already in
between.
place. Plans to do that and to mark.
And you can put anything you want to in place. How are you going to police it?
Well, that's what we have
I
staff
mean,
there
it's going
for.
to be a challenge. Have you been to Walmart lately?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, as far as the signage, the dots, the spacing dots and stuff, all that stuff is ordered. We're prepared to do all that. But again, it is going to take more supervision, not to say that our staff doesn't supervise all the time, because they do, but teachers are going to have to be at their doors. Teachers are going to have to be more prevalent in hallways and making sure that people are socially distanced as they're going from class to class or to the cafeteria or whatever. And that's a team effort, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. But we've got an absolutely wonderful staff that will make sure it's done, and great groups of administrators that
And the
will make
reason,
sure it's
too,
done as well.
that I'm pointing it out and asking is because I noticed that for the surveys that went out to the parents, that when you put the question about them coming to school, you put the DHEC thing in there and you put the CDC.
Correct.
So as a parent, then I would want to know that, okay, if I'm sending my kids to go back to school 5 days a week, that I have the assurance, since you put that on there, that those are going to be the guidelines that you follow.
Right, and obviously there were 2 DHEC representatives that were in that announcement today. I don't know if we see any changes coming from CDC or DHEC. If they do, we'll adhere to them as well. But right now, we've got the guidelines as they are written, and our plan is to adhere to them to the T. No exceptions.
So I have a question. Are we going to require the students to wear a mask or not wear a mask? Well,
We're waiting on some direction from that too. The wording that we have been given up to this point is highly recommended and encouraged. But again, I'll tell you, as a superintendent in this school district, I have a major concern. If we're going to go ahead and go back 5 days a week, again, depending upon the number of parents that choose for their children to be in the building, if we're not going to be able to socially distance, then there may be a requirement that masks are worn, and there's not an option unless there's a medical reason. That's very possible. The more people you put in the building and the more people you put in close proximity to each other, the more these masks need to be worn. And I don't want to start preaching here, but we wouldn't be in this situation if we had worn masks and properly social distance across this state and not done some of the things that have gone on to create this pandemic. Because it has gotten worse, and it has definitely gotten worse in Newberry County. We've got to do something as adults in our buildings to set a tone for our children and for our parents to come in and be safe as they come into our buildings, and not to spread this virus, but to stop it.
I know we have provided face shields to the bus drivers. Is that something we could do for our teachers?
We've already ordered face shields and masks for all of our teachers. Yes, sir.
No,
Just from the middle school mindset, we also have looked at our cafeteria and being able to get our children in there, and all children, regardless of age, regardless of any circumstance, to be in one classroom all day. You just need to imagine, put yourself in that desk. put yourself in that position, and it's a challenging concept to stay in one spot. So we most certainly, middle school representatives everywhere will tell you movement is highly necessary, and especially young children as well. High schools lend themselves to schedules. They can't stay in the same place because of schedules. So it's one of those things, not just a cafeteria, but it is transitioning. It is movement. We all have different buildings. Some of us don't have a 6-foot wide hall. Some of us also, when you look at one-way traffic, when we first talked about this, we said, well, sure, on a nice day, they can take a walk around outside, but Mother Nature doesn't allow us to pick what days we can walk outside and what the temperature, much less rain or not, is going to be. So, it's a matter also of when we talk social distancing, monitoring that. We've all discussed how to build into our schedule, transitioning. In the past has been 3 to 4 minutes at my school. It's now looking to be 10. I had a task force meeting this morning that involved community and parents, and they said, well, where's that extra time going to come from? Is it going to come from instruction? Are you going to lengthen your day? They also asked, are you going to make the children wear masks? These are questions that parents are also asking. And of course, we don't have all those answers right now. So just from this very morning, having a meeting with my community members and parents, these same things came up. On a hybrid day, it's much more workable than it is on a full-blown traditional day with every child in that building. It really is. We want to see our children. We miss our children more than anybody can imagine. I've had children email me. My own students email me. How are you doing? So everybody's worried, everybody's concerned, but my concern is sending everyone back full-blown without having other things in place and the right protocols in place. That's a concern starting from this morning, all my parents and community members, and they were speaking for their children. I had one mom say, I have 2 different children who think 2 different ways. One of them says, sure, give me a mask, I'll wear it. The other one says, but I can't breathe as good if I have a mask on. Even the children, from elementary all the way through high school. And so, it is a cafeteria thing, sure, but I just want everybody to realize it's a full-blown building. Going to the bathroom, monitoring those stations, in addition to monitoring from point A to point B in the hallway or when they change their schedules. I don't think until you get in a building and you truly walk a building, which what we have been doing within our buildings, finding an isolation room for when a nurse triages a child and having to find an isolation room. Yeah. So I just really want you to realize it's not just bringing children in. We miss them. We miss them dearly, but we want everyone safe, whatever the decision's going to be. And we need protocols in place, and everybody needs to follow them.
Everything that I've heard is we're possibly going to have less help at each building, more protocols. Would it? And everything's going to take longer and be more labor intensive. Would it be any benefit to add, and it wouldn't take certified teachers to do this, but would it be any benefit to add some teacher assistants to help monitor the hallways, to help monitor kids, when they're not in the classroom, to be outside if they do walk down the sidewalk around the building to make sure that we don't have any problems with safety?
Yes, sir.
I know that's going to cost money, but everything I'm hearing is labor intensive.
Yes, sir. In our CARES Act funding budget that we had to present to the State Department, we actually put funding in for, I think it was 25, bus aides or instructors, but we could use those bus aides. Again, we're paying them by the hour. They come off the bus. If they need to go into the building and assist us, we can dictate how many hours they're there. So we've got some of that built in already. And
Even
if we
if they
had
were
to,
available for lunchtime.
right, if we had to add more, we could add some more from that COVID-19 money as well.
Mr. Stuber, is, like some of the pictures that you see from over in some of the foreign countries where kids have gone back to school and been in school for a while, like the little plexiglass shield, I guess kind of sort of like the plastic shields that you see people wearing, that, you've seen them just set up on the desk. I mean, is that something that, would make, if we go back to a 5-day and
It's a possibility. What we have done is we've already contracted to, in high-traffic areas, front offices, attendance clerk areas, maybe speech pathologists. We're already contracted in having some plexiglass shields built for those rooms. There's a variety of stuff out there. There's like one desk shields, 2 desks where they've got 2 petitions, one that's got 3. Some of those are a little bit more expensive than others. To buy one for every single desk in every single school, I don't think is
I was
monetarily
thinking
feasible.
more like the younger kids.
But in the areas where we need them, say a speech pathologist is sitting at a table and they've got to be closer to kids, we'll do, and again, that'll be up to the principals, sit down with their staff and tell us exactly what they need. But yes, ma'am, we're very open to doing that. We've had that discussion.
How's Montessori going to work in all of this? Because, the Montessoris are all,
Well, early childhood.
I met with my school task force team, and there was a Montessori teacher on our team. And, she's going to have to get creative. Now, mind you, when we met, we thought we were going to be at 50% capacity, and things were, we were all kind of feeling good. And, we've got this under control. We can make adjustments, and we feel comfortable with keeping the kids, socially distanced appropriately. But, today, after listening to the governor, you kind of go, and you feel like you've taken 2 steps forward and now 5 steps back. So it's definitely going to present some challenges, some different challenges. We're up for the challenge, but you can only do so much with the square feet that you have, available. But an idea that came up with the Montessori is assigning each child a shelf, and they would have lessons for the week on that shelf, and they could only do those lessons for the week, and then they would be sterilized, and new additional lessons would be brought. Of course, there would be other supplemental things, but these would be the lessons that require manipulatives. So there would be supplemental lessons that they could put in, but those would be the lessons with the Montessori materials that they would use for that week.
and how are we going to sanitize that with the machines that we have?
With the sprayer.
And those machines have arrived, so we're okay with those machines. We're just missing all the Clorox 360 machines, but all the handhelds have arrived.
That was just one idea that we came up with. But again,
I just remember going to a Montessori classroom, and they just all over.
isn't it amazing? Don't you love it? Come visit anytime.
Anybody else? Any more questions or any comments from anybody on the staff? Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, I will ask Mr. Rawls if he'll come forward and do the operations report. We're going to talk about some cleaning and disinfecting and tech devices.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll be brief, but I wanted to come up and give you a quick update on cleaning. We've got a new custodial provider in the district with HES, and I wanted to shine on them a little bit. These folks have hit the ground July 1 and are wide open and have made leaps and bounds in getting the schools ready for instruction. Not only have they committed all their resource to that and disinfecting, but they've also reached down and said, as we get more of our own equipment that belongs to the district, providing an outlet for some training to make sure that our staff members that are out on the front lines in the school have proper training on how to use those different devices in disinfecting their schools. So I did want to give them a little bit of a shout out. But we're continuing to clean, continuing to work through some of those processes of how disinfecting, how that process is going to work as we go in. But I've got no doubt that we'll have a ironclad plan in place with some procedures as students come back to the buildings. Did want to touch base a little bit on tech rollout with our computers and one-to-one. If we hold our ship dates as we've been promised from the different providers, I'm very confident that we'll have devices for every student as they come back to school, so that we can have that one-to-one. Didn't know if y'all had any questions about how that process goes, or that we're feeling pretty good.
When a child logs into one of our devices, I'm assuming it's going to come through the school firewall.
Yes, sir.
So there will be our firewall
Yes, sir.
protection will still be on that device regardless of where it's
Where it
being
is.
used.
Yes, sir. And a little bit of that, I guess, concern as we go through that is having good internet access when they're away from school. The Office of Regulatory Staff has been tasked with the duty of trying to figure out how they're going to get mobile hotspots out to students that don't have adequate internet access. So a little bit of that. I know we got some information on that today. That's been a little bit of a slow wheel turning, but there again, we're still working through some of those kinks, but trying to identify families that have multiple students so that we can put that device in their hands and they can continue to have access to the internet, rather away from school or at home.
And I only ask that because the internet is a dangerous place for our children.
It is.
So what is our plan? I have not seen a plan before the board on how we're going to distribute devices and how we're going to protect ourselves.
Right now, the devices, we've got a management plan in place that'll be, not to dumb it down, but it's almost as if you'll check out a book. It'll be scanned, assigned to that student. Their device and their charger, or whatever that charger looks like, will be assigned to them. And then they'll use that device to get on to Dr. Carey's software that they're using for instruction. So that'll be a web-based portal that they'll go to.
Are you talking about just for virtual school, just for
Actually,
distance
it would
learning,
be-
or every student?
It would be used however.
Yeah, we've got the capability to go with every student once all these new devices come in.
That's what I understood. So are you going to actually give them to elementary students?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
K through 2 would be iPads, 3 through 5, and 6 through 12 would be tablets.
And how will we recover for those that lose them or damage them?
Sir?
Do we have some kind of plan in place for those that lose them or damage? We can't even keep up with textbooks, can we?
Yeah, we've got insurance. Yeah. Get a microphone and talk to us a little bit about the insurance on these things, or what's provided as far as loss goes.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Right now, we've been looking at, iPads actually have a warranty built onto them with our cases that will cover any damage for 4 years to the iPad. The laptops have everything but if they spill a drink on them, and they'll be covered. If they're lost or stolen, we have a way to invoice the parent, and it is in the handbook that the parent and child is responsible for that device and the cost of that device.
Okay.
I
Thank you,
understood
ma'am.
going one-to-one when we were going to do a hybrid schedule, because everybody would have 3 days that they would need to do virtual learning. Now that that's not a possibility, do we need to hold off on placing a device in every child's hand? If they're going to be here 5 days, do they need one?
I don't think we need to hold off. That may vary from grade level to grade level, but this is one of those situations where this is a very difficult time that we're in, but it's a good time for us because what it has done is it's kind of shaken us out of our comfort zone. We needed to put technology in kids' hands years ago, and we are behind districts across this country. It's time for us to get into the technological age, and this is a great opportunity to do it.
One of the recommendations that I've received from the other districts is by each child having their own device that helps cut down on stress germs. It's only that child using that device, that you're not giving anybody.
I have a question. You said at the high school, if they lose or it's stolen, then the parent has to pay. Is that my understanding of what you said?
There is a plan device in there. Now, what we're doing with the teachers is they have a police report and we can make them pay. So we'll do that with the parents.
Well, do we, as a district, are we going to have insurance on these devices in case? I mean, I get that the parent's going to sign saying that they are responsible to pay, but we know sometimes that's hard to collect, and we're going to need to replace that device. Do we have insurance?
I agree with that question because we have trouble collecting lunch money sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, we did discuss this, there was feasibility of doing a technology fee to help cover that cost, but we do not have any insurance on that.
Well, we shouldn't charge everybody for doing it. We ought to charge people that are negligent with it. We need to have some way to do that, some way that's enforceable.
That's why this is the invoice people that step off the device.
As a parent or a grandparent, just for what it's worth, the last thing my children need is more screen time. I mean, they are on it all the time. And that's why I think you saw such a debacle of e-learning during the shutdown, and everybody's been against that. It's just not what it's cracked up to be. It's a great tool, but it's not a replacement for educators.
I'm not technology savvy, but just, you were talking about the firewall. Does that mean, because I know that they're, from what I understand, that it's set up to just go to whatever program that they have, that they can go on it. But like if they're at a place that has some other kind of Wi-Fi, can they?
That particular device is embedded with software that I don't want to get too technical, but yeah,
Okay, so it won't let them, like if they're out someplace and there's a Wi-Fi hotspot or whatever, they can't use their own hotspot to.
If they're using our device, it redirects back to our firewall.
So it won't allow them to look up anything at home that we wouldn't allow them to look up here.
Correct.
Well, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I think we should definitely investigate what it would be for us to try to get some insurance, because we have, as we know, a lot of funds in purchasing these devices. I just know from experience, having taught in a school where we had one-to-one, and unfortunately, so many times people just don't take care of things as well when it's not their own and they didn't have to pay for it. And
Yeah, the majority of the
I just think we need
pricing,
to be safe on that.
the pricing I've got is around $70 to $80 a device.
That'll discourage you, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Ross.
Well, I'll conclude here with a little Gallman update. As y'all are well aware, Gallman experienced a flood sometime at the end of May with a ruptured water heater that was in the ceiling. I want to report that we've made great strides in getting that building squared away. VCT flooring is being installed this week. We're finishing up some painting over there this week. Anticipate moving some of the teacher furnishings back in that building sometime beginning early next week. Now, with saying that, our shortcoming is the damaged casework that we experienced over there. Nearly every one of those 14 rooms had some base cabinet damage to where cabinets had to be removed. I don't have a firm ship date on those now. At the beginning of July, it was about a 8-week lead time, so that put us on into August. But I've been back negotiating with them as they get some completed. Can we get those delivered and start that installation process early? That'll give us opportunity to get plumbers and whoever else we need in here to get sinks back installed and get plumbing hooked back to those. So our last meeting, I didn't have quite the warm feeling I have now that I think we'll be ready to receive students. It's going to be a little different there in regards to how we furnish that space and have available space for storage, but that'll continue to improve as we go on into the calendar. So if you have any other questions about that.
I'm assuming our storage containers will be gone by the.
That's my aim, is to condense them down.
Or at least move them around back or something.
Well, I wanted to move them early, but I thought that would just create more steps to get it back to where it needed to be. I think we've got some commitment from the folks that brought those there. They'll respond to us. So my plan is to get what we can out of them, as many of them as we can, into the classroom they belong, it's assigned to, and then condense what's left to go in storage, maybe into one or two of those containers stored down on the end of the parking lot. That'll create some more steps there, but I'm hopefully that it'll be a lot smaller of an amount of stuff, so it'll be a little easier, a little more timely to get it in the building. Yeah, that's a big concern. That's the main drive up Loop, and it's very cluttered over there now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Student Services and Transportation, Dr. Hunter.
Madam Chair, Board, and Super, and all district employees out there. I just want to give you a brief update on transportation and student services. At this time, I know it was a game changer after we heard what our governor proposed today. We were planning on having, for Group 1 and Group 2, updating our routes for our students, but now we're going to plan for all of our students to come back for 5 days. So I want to personally thank everyone that worked hard to formulate these groups. You guys did an excellent job with that, so we're going to plan like all of our students. But I want to leave you guys with this as well. That's kind of, I guess, have some dialogue on how we're going to transport all of these students now 5 days. Let's just go back and close our eyes as if we were in high school. And how we look back then, just imagine all of us at capacity level on a school bus and how we're going to transport all those students with this pandemic. So just some food to thought as you let that marinate in your minds throughout this evening as we make a decision what's best for all of our students. Also, we had registration for our students to have IDs. As you know, previously in the last school year, we had a lot of our students on the bus that we didn't quite know. They were getting on different buses at the wrong time than they were actually assigned to. So we had our middle school and high school administrators to allow us to use their equipment so we can have IDs for our students that's going to ride the bus for this upcoming school year. And we had approximately over 1,000 students to register during our registration dates that we had this month. Also, we have Wi-Fi capabilities for approximately 24 of our buses if we need those as well for the upcoming school year. Currently, we have 6 that are active that we can currently use. At this time now, before we, like I said, what the governor proposed today, we had approximately all of our bus drivers that were willing to come back. I pray that stands since we're going to a 5-day as well. Are there any questions for me at this time?
So, Dr. Hunter, earlier in Dr. Ware's presentation, I think she said 20% of somebody said they'd have to ride the bus, 20.4 or something.
Yeah.
That's about 1,000 students. How does that compare with what we're doing in a normal year? Do we have more than 1,000 that you usually?
Yes, sir.
So if we get it down, if only 1,000 people need to ride the bus, is that more manageable?
Well, it just depends on what areas.
I see.
Especially in the city, I mean, we have more students that are going to pretty much ride the bus.
What will our outreach be now since we know what we know? Are we going to try to contact those parents through the survey? I didn't know if you could do something like that or make a plea for them.
We'll definitely shake the trees to try to figure out what we can get from our parents, and get some feedback from them. But we're just going to be proactive and sit back and be ahead of this so we can get our students to our school safely every single day.
Given the governor's decision today, are we still going to try to socially distance by using every other seat, or are we just going to put them on the bus?
No,
what are we planning on doing?
They changed that. The last model that came out was a configuration of one person in one seat, 2 people in the seat behind it, 1, 2, 1, 2, and their premise was that there will be enough people that are from the same household that those 2 can sit in the same seat. The only seats they were leaving vacant were the 2 seats behind the driver to provide 6 foot of social distancing for the driver. So this is going to present a challenge for us. And the one thing to answer and to kind of follow up on what Dr. Hunter said, we are going to have to contact these parents that have registered and try to go ahead and start populating some bus routes, because there's a very good possibility we may have 2 or 3 routes that are heavy and there's 80% riding, but we may have 2 or 3 routes where there's not but 40% riding, and we may have to change some routes and spread those kids out a little bit. But the thing that's going to potentially result in is some longer bus routes, and we may not be able to get every child to school by the time the bell rings, and we're just going to have some flexibility there. But the more kids we have to transport, the harder it's going to be to social distance.
Yes, exactly.
And am I understanding that middle and high schoolers now have an ID to get on a bus?
Yeah.
We couldn't have modified the ID that they have for school to reflect what bus they were supposed to get on to?
We had that same question, but especially at the middle school level, and Dee Dee, I'm not sure what y'all are doing, but they lose their IDs so much. Now some of them are having to turn their IDs at the end of the day and give them to their homeroom teacher or whatever so they can be reissued the next day. So we just decided to do separate bus IDs.
Who's going to hold the bus ID?
Bus driver, all right.
You're allowing us to have assistants on the bus, so we can use them to help with that as well?
Man,
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, knowing this, that we won't be able to social distance all the children on the bus, why wouldn't we say it's mandatory that you wear a mask?
You said, why don't we say that?
Right, why wouldn't we say
No,
that? It's
I'm going to
mandatory.
turn that over to Mr.
I didn't say we weren't going to say that. I said the situation we've been put in right now, because again, in these surveys, it was about a 50-50 split as to far as mask goes, but that may not be an option anymore, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing that we need to do before we can educate kids is to keep them safe and keep them healthy, and that's our primary responsibility, and then get them in the classroom and educate them. If that takes putting a mask on every adult and every child in that building, then that's what we'll do. And you'll be a part of that. We'll finalize that discussion next Monday or Tuesday whenever we decide we're going to meet.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Reader. It ought to be no-brainer on buses. That was
Drive
always
the
a
bus,
big
wear a
deal.
mask.
Well, but again, depending upon the number of parents that choose to send their children, it's going to be the same way in some classrooms.
Well, it should be the parents, that's where it starts. It starts at home. And if the school say you're going to wear a mask, then the parents need to say, well, you're going to wear a mask.
Right.
Ms. Reader, it doesn't work that way.
Well,
I agree with you, but it doesn't work
well,
that way.
it's time for a change.
I know. I agree with you.
Any other questions? Dr. Hunter?
Thank you all for all that you do for our kids.
Thank you,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, any other questions from the board for any of our staff or vice versa before we end this thing? Okay, what I would ask, Ms. Metz, if you guys can have some conversation, we would like to come back either Monday or Tuesday afternoon and follow up. I'm sure we're going to have some new information to share with you by then, but we need to finalize this plan, and we need to announce it to our school district and to our parents and students next week. So whatever your preference.
So, Mr. Superintendent, can we be throwing around to parents out there that we might start school a week early, or a week later? Or are you rather, we just not going to say anything?
I'd rather, you've got your drafts. I think we can make that final decision Monday or Tuesday and do it all at one time. I don't want to put it out there now and have to back it up 2 days
Our
later.
drafts go from the governor's recommendation back to our original. We might can do, we're quite capable of doing something in the middle of that, if I understood.
Yes.
I mean, we don't expect things to be perfect if we wait to September the 8th.
I'm very comfortable for us bringing a calendar to you Monday or Tuesday whenever you choose to meet and asking for your approval.
Okay.
I can go either day.
Either day?
Same time?
We would prefer that, yes, sir.
I'm good either way.
Ms. Reader said you Tuesday?
Tuesday would be better, but I can, if I have to change, I will.
All right. Can,
Either day.
Ms. Either day? Mr. Bledsoe, did you say?
Either
you
one.
do
You
Tuesday?
tell me, yes,
All
ma'am.
right, then let's, if that suits Ms. Reader, let's just do
Either or.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Is that good for you, Ms. Reader? All right, Tuesday, 3 o'clock, does that work for everybody? All right, Tuesday at 3 o'clock, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Metz, I'll let you adjourn. Ms. Metz,
Better send me something, I'll forget about you.
you want to do the adjourn?
Yes, yes, we do. Okay, I want to thank everybody that was here today and all your hard work, especially in light of the unexpected news this morning. So, with all that said, we'll see everybody again next Tuesday at 3, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.